Kia ora ana, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuki. Coming up, New Zealand axes Pacific migrant worker visas, also a secret deal between the Fiji government and the Chief Justice.
It's not about me, it's about protecting the integrity of the Commission.
And Reggae band UB40 kick off their Pacific tour in the Kingdom. New Zealand has quietly scrapped plans to open new Pacific worker pathways in the meat and seafood processing sectors, documents obtained by RNZ Pacific under the Official Information Act show. Two new seasonal visas, the Peak Seasonal Visa and the Global Workforce Seasonal Visa, were issued in December 2025. To talk more about this, I'm joined by our reporter, Kaya Selby. Kia ora, Kaya. So what does the OIA show?
Kia ora, Sana. So what we received from the OIA was a piece of advice to Cabinet from NFAT officials, and it had to do with the two new seasonal visa pathways that the coalition government have rolled out. One being the Peak Seasonal Visa for low-skilled workers, and then the Global Workforce Seasonal Visa for your more sort of high school, perhaps targeting some of those tech migrant workers. And officials in the piece of advice we got appeared to have concerns over some potential barriers to Pacific Island workers, specifically through that Peak Seasonal Visa. It noted that the PSV visa, for example, required a year's previous work experience. But Pacific officials, when MFAT consulted with them, had asked for this not to be there so that more Pacific workers can meet the visa criteria. It's quite hard to pick up industry-specific work experience in other countries just because of undeveloped industry and whatnot. But we know that MB had decided to retain the requirement so that the migrant visas didn't displace New Zealand job seekers. Another concern noted were high visa costs. The Peak Seasonal Visa carried a $1,500 visa fee, for example, and we know that this is a very high cost threshold for Pacific Island workers to meet. So, it noted a piece of work from Labour, the previous Labour government, where this perhaps wouldn't have been as much of an issue.
What else can you tell us about the new visas?
So, we know that they came into effect in December. It offers about 7 months' worth of seasonal work. This is different from the RSE scheme, which is exclusive to Pacific Islanders in agriculture, horticulture, that offers about 3 months, usually over the summer. This expands it out a little bit, includes sectors like dairy, forestry, meat and seafood packing, for example, and it's open to all migrant workers, whereas RSE tends to be more exclusive towards those Pacific Islanders. But the RSE scheme doesn't have as high of a cost attached to it. The visa fee is about $350 or so. And that's on top of hidden costs like insurance while the worker is over in Aotearoa, or the cost of flights, which usually has to be stumped up by the worker themselves. So there's a lot kind of going on different here that people are concerned might lift barriers to Pacific Island workers for those sought-after jobs.
So what exactly was the Pacific program and why did it get scrapped?
Labour had proposed this back in 2022. They were supposed to be kind of special programs for meat and seafood processing work specifically, which was quite sought after at the time and still is, I suppose. And it would have been a model for easier entry into work. This is what we can gather from official information because ultimately it never went ahead. It was supposed to upskill Pacific workers. It was supposed to offer them more permanent work opportunities, lower barriers to entry in terms of their costs. The costs would have been lower. There wouldn't have been a threshold for experience. And we can see from press releases that Labour wanted to expand it into other sectors. But from what we can gather, after the coalition government came in 2023, it got consigned to the policy dustbin. Sana, it never went ahead.
So what's been the reaction to all of this?
Mixed reactions, I suppose, from the expert stakeholder community. I spoke to June Ranson, who's an immigration lawyer out in Lower Hutt. She was very pleased with it because it simplified a lot of those more complicated visa rules. and more seasonal visa options for, I suppose, workers outside of the Pacific had been long sought after as well. But I did also speak to Beryl Razak, who deals specifically with Pacific Islanders in the seafood processing sector, and she is less pleased with the peak seasonal visa and just the system in general. Here's what she had to say.
It's very expensive for a start, and it's a very short window as well. By the time the workers, they come and they pay back all the expenses like flights, insurance, the visas and all this. And then it's time for them to go back.
So yeah, you can hear from that, not particularly pleased. I suppose with Pacific Islanders, again, you have the fact that back at home, their median incomes are so much lower than ours out in the developed world. And while the high cost thresholds may be relatively easy to handle from other places, from other workers coming in, it's just not the case for the Pacific. Those opportunities just aren't there, and that, I think, is what has people most concerned.
In Fiji, the state is negotiating a secret deal with the country's highest-ranking judge after he was accused of corruption in a damning commission of inquiry last year. Chief Justice Salesi Temo was among high-profile people found to have allegedly lied under oath and perverted the course of justice. The inquiry, led by Australian Judge David Ashton Lewis, focused on Barbara Malimali, the former head of Fiji's independent anti-corruption agency. Margot Staunton has more.
Salesi Temo is among government officials implicated in the inquiry in Fiji last year. However, none of them will face any criminal charges stemming from police investigations. Public prosecutors have dismissed 12 cases arising from the probe due to insufficient evidence. Meanwhile, Salesi Temo, head of the Judicial Services Commission, challenged the findings against the JSC and its officers in a civil proceeding. The state has since proposed a confidential settlement, which the JSC's lawyer, Israeli Farr, insists is not a payout.
It's not about money. It's about protecting the integrity of the commission, the government, and the proper functioning of the judicial system.
Asked what the settlement involved, he said,
Settlement does not involve payment of money. And I've already said that I can't disclose this issue because it's still a work in progress with the government.
He says rumours that Salesi Temo is going to be pocketing compensation are false. He said civil cases did not deal with compensation for damages.
This is the big problem because there's just so many lies and misrepresentation being spread about this. It's interfering with the court and with everybody's ability to conclude the matter properly.
Mr Farr claims the findings against the JSC, the Chief Justice and the Chief Registrar, Tomazi Bainivalu, were baseless.
The Commissioner, in our opinion, used evidence that were not substantiated. And then he came up with this finding. Once you examine that closer, the findings could not stand up to scrutiny.
Farr says the JSC decided to take civil action.
The COI then recommended that all these people be investigated and charged, whereas we then moved in the High Court for judicial review to quash those findings.
Meanwhile, the Fiji Labour Party has strongly opposed any out-of-court settlement. Its leader, Mahendra Chaudhry, says keeping the deal confidential is repugnant.
Thousands of UB40 fans have flocked to Tonga for the Big Love Pacific tour launch. Reggae legends, UB40 featuring Ali Campbell, opened their regional tour at Del Fiva Stadium in Nuku'alofa. Suana Aholele reports.
The band imported an international stage and sound system, promising an unforgettable show that will feature a full UB40 set of the group's big hits. Radio Nuku'alofa's DJ Lala Ramanlau says the concert is helping the local businesses and the economy.
Most of the hotels here are full. It's just a win-win for Tonga. Not just a win for us Tongans to be able to listen to UB40 featuring Ali Campbell, but a win for the economy. The people that's come here, not only just going to come here for the concert, but they're in cafes, they're in shops, they're in restaurants. So it's big events like this is definitely a positive.
It's the band's first visit to the kingdom in nearly 2 decades, and Ramanao got a chance to catch up with Ali Campbell when they arrived at Fuamotu Airport.
What Ali Campbell said yesterday when I got a chance to just get a few words, he said he is sure it's going to be a good show because he knows the Tongans love reggae, and he's brought the best reggae band in the world with him.
The show promises to feature a full lineup of UB40's biggest hits with something for all their fans, young and old. Ramanao says there will be a lot of reminiscing to the old songs.
To be able to go to Te Whaiwa, you know, people have been listening to these guys on CD and went on to NB3. Now they're listening to it on their phones, and now they get to watch them live.
After Tonga, UB40 fly to Fiji and then Samoa before heading to Aotearoa for a string of shows across the North Island.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā, sui fua.